Hey guys, welcome back. We had a very short break between these videos, but we were able to very quickly make a bracket for the LPL Summer Playoffs. This video will be a little different than the other ones that I've normally done, or the one that we basically did for the LEC, just because the bracket is a bit bigger. So this will be a bit of a shorter video. I won't be going nearly as in-depth, just because it literally took me like the entire time in between like the regular season ending and playoff starting, which is in basically 12 hours, so upon recording this, so I have to kind of be quick. I will be as in-depth as I can be while also being very, very brief, so without further ado, let's just hop right in. Okay, so basically what you see right in front of you is the first 3 rounds of the playoffs and the LPL playoffs for summer. They do 6 rounds, basically 3 rounds that are single elimination, and then once you get to the 4th round, it is double elimination from there on out. So these first 6 teams are the top, or the bottom 8 of the LPL. Even though not bottom 8 of the top 10. Sorry, basically the 10th through the 3rd seed are these teams. JDG and BLG are automatically seeded into the 4th round, so they get the double elimination because they did so well. That being said, let's just break this bracket down. We'll talk about each individual matchup, and I'll give you some pointers, basically, for what I think is the sort of the winning points of these teams. So first, we'll talk about EDG versus Team WE. So the first set of rounds, like round 1, is basically like pretty close in my opinion. It gets a little inconsistent after that. So for EDG versus WE, my initial thoughts were a WE 3-1, but I think that WE is sort of an objectively stronger team. Although I still think that EDG has their strengths. I think that WE is sort of this dark horse of the bracket, and I mean, like WE has taken some like really important wins against Top Esports and Weibo, for example. So like they're definitely a strong team. EDG has these like moments where like, oh, this is a pretty decent team, but then it's also like kind of you know. I also think that having Hope, the ADC for Team WE, is like in a decent mid jungle with like Shanks and Hung, make this team like relatively strong. Even though EDG does have some strong players, I mean, they have 2 Worlds winners. I mean, every one of these players, all these players like Ale, Uzi, JJ, and Mako, all have gone to Worlds. JJ and Mako have won Worlds. I still think that they all basically look like they're on the back foot, especially JJ and Mako. Obviously, Uzi is just kind of like, and in the most respectful way possible, because Uzi is like, you know, one of the GOATs. He looks kind of washed up. Like, he's not nearly as good as he was before. And also, the biggest thing for me is I think that for EDG, if Fisher stays in over Fofo, I don't see this team winning. Because Fisher has looked really, really bad on EDG, in my personal opinion. I just think that he's kind of, I don't know if there's a reason why. I haven't kept up with the many, like, dramatic things that are happening with EDG, other than leaving. So, I mean, it's just, you know, I think that even though EDG did beat WE 2-1, I kind of have to chalk that down to sort of like a Game 3 wildcard Uzi vein. Like, obviously he would take a win on that. And I just think that, you know, it doesn't really mean much when you like objectively look at it and think that WE is honestly just a better team. So, I think despite me initially thinking it was a 3-1, I think that there's still some competition for EDG, and I feel like WE does still have some weaknesses. So I'll say WE 3-2. Moving on to the next game in round 1 is RNG versus Ninjas in Pajamas. So this is kind of hard because these teams are really like even as fuck. So the precedent is that NIP had a 2-1 win over RNG in the regular season. I think that the losses were jungle div. Way did end kind of hard, but it was also a very recent matchup, so that precedent could still kind of remain. However, RNG does have sort of a better overall match record than NIP. Wei has a better win rate on all junglers versus all teams. I think that Angel is scary on Jace, which is good, versus Annie, which is Tangyuan's most picked. So it's kind of easy draft response, but I don't know if Annie will get picked that much now that the nerfs are going to be rolling in for this patch for LPL. Some of the other things, NIP did take a loss to FPX, but RNG took a loss to Anyone's Legend, so they are really, really even. So, I mean, if you really come down to it, when I have to ask myself who do I think will win, I have to say RNG. I think it'll be a 3-2. This could really swing either way, in my opinion. I think that both teams have good carries, like Angel's good, Photic's good. I think that Breathe and LP are the carries for RNG. I think RNG does also have Ming still, which is good. But oh, they don't actually have Ming. I'm sorry, they have Lumao. Never mind. Ignore what I said. They have Lumao. I totally forgot about that. I forgot that Ming is like in fucking hell. Sorry, but doesn't change anything. The fact that, you know, Breathe and LP are the carries for RNG, in my opinion. I think that they are the people you have to look for. I do think I believe in them a little bit more. LP is still pretty good. I mean, he was on LNG last split. They placed, you know, decent. So I would believe in RNG. I don't think it's impossible for NIP to take this 3-2, but I don't feel like anything other than 5 games is possible. But I will say RNG 3-2. Okay, so now we're moving on to round 2. Round 2 has the entrance of OMG and Weibo, and we'll just break those 2 matchups down really quickly. So there's this kind of brief part here where the matchups are a little one-sided, these, you know, second and third rounds. So firstly with OMG versus WE, I think OMG takes this 3-1. I think OMG looks a little worse than they did last split, but I still believe that they are really good, and they should have an easy time taking a win against WE. If we really want to get into specifics, I think Shanji is having one of the best splits of his life, and OMG has this sort of capability to pull out weird, unique picks like Shanji on the Darius. Obviously, before Rumble was strong, the Shanji Rumble was being picked a lot more, and people weren't banning it. I don't think it will be let through at all, because Rumble being meta and Shanji being probably like one of the best Rumbles in the world is like a recipe for like an OMG sweep. But I think Shanji has shown himself to be a really reliable top carry, and on top of the fact that Abel has also played stuff like the Samira and the Kog'Maw, so he's able to play like weird picks that can kind of come out of left field, but he's also very capable of playing like the regular shit. I think the problem, they think they've also kind of been able to like adapt to the meta pretty well, which, sorry, I had to get to that there too. So I think that the carries of Shanji and Abel are good. I think Cream and Aki look kind of weak, but even then they're still fine. Like they're not like the best or worst mid jungle in the world. They're just like, they're okay. Like they're okay mid jungle, right? I do think that the loss though that they will take will probably be because they focus Abel. I think if OMG does end up losing this series in any way, it's because what WE does is they call Hong and Shakes to like perma for like 4v2 dive Abel, which is basically like the way that most of the higher teams have beaten OMG this split, is they just like focus the shit out of Abel, because Cream and Aki can't do a lot to peel, and PP God is okay at peeling. So it's giving Hope kills would be good for the team, and I think that Hope is their win con against WE or against OMG. So if there was a way that OMG losses, it would be through bot lane. But I think that they will at least lose a game this way. I think OMG will be able to fix it or adapt. So regardless of one likely hiccup game, OMG wins 3-1. I think it's impossible to ever say an OMG 3-0. It's just the way that they are. This team never... I love this team, but they never do anything normal. Anyways, moving on to RNG versus Weibo. This is very one-sided. I think it's going to be a 3-0 from Weibo. I think in every role, Weibo is better than RNG. Additionally, the Tristana meta is still kind of there, and it's pretty prevalent, and that's amazing for Xiaohu. Xiaohu Tristana is decently good. I think despite some missteps from this team, Weibo is still an objectively better team, and Light is still great. The Shy ints, but he always comes out on top. He's kind of like the golden child. He can int it however he wants, but he's able to just sort of pull it together. And Weiwei, despite having some inconsistency, he still looks pretty good. I don't really have a lot to say here because this is just like a ridiculously one-sided matchup. I think that literally in all 5 roles, Weibo is just wildly better than RNG. So I can't like there's just no way that RNG can win this. They can maybe get a game like in the Nightmare world, but Weibo has to win this series. There's no shot. Okay, and now we're into round 3. So this has the entrance of Top Esports and LNG, who are the 3rd and 4th seed. So we'll break this down. We'll start with OMG versus Top Esports. So let me first preface this by saying that I am an OMG fanatic. I know that my previous things about them, what I just said was not the best. But I am an OMG fanatic. They're my favorite team in the LPL. And Top Esports is my least favorite team. I fucking hate Top Esports. I don't like when they win, but it is what it is. However, I think that I need to say that when I say that I think Top Esports still takes it. I think I can't delude myself into saying that Top Esports lose this series, because I feel like the only way they lose a series is if they choke, and that's for when they go to Worlds. So I'd rather them choke now than choke at Worlds instead, because I don't like Top Esports. So anyways, my hating aside, I think that Top Esports is just an objectively better team. I think despite the fact that they have, you know, Tian, who is kind of a choker, Wayward, who's also kind of a choker, and obviously Jackie Love, who, you know, it's sometimes, it's a bit coin flippy. They're still good, and I mean, they look good right now, right? And looking at each team objectively, I think that Shanji obviously has it over Wayward. I think Shanji has experience. He's just a better player. He can play stuff that counters Wayward's pool. Wayward's pool is kind of small. I think that if CES suddenly subbed in Jingtian, then maybe it would be a little harder. But they won't, because they're trolling. So it is what it is. I think that Aki and Cream's lack of like draft flexibility sometimes can harm them in the versus Rookie and Tian, because these two players, I think that they can still play the weird stuff, but they don't. Most of the weird draft picks from OMG come in the top or bottom lane. The mid jungle is usually pretty meta standard, and their sort of inflexibility can make them really hard lose against Rookie and Tian, who are objectively good players, 2 Worlds winning players. They're great, right? I think that Tian is a disgusting choker, but he looks fine right now, so I can't exactly say that with confidence Aki will be better. It just makes no sense, right? And additionally, as much as I hate Jackie Love's playstyle, he is really honestly having a phenomenal split. So, as sad as I am to say this, I really think that this is going to probably be a stomp, so TES 3-0. Moving on to LNG versus Weibo, I think that LNG takes this one 3-1 pretty handedly. I think that Zika and the Shy matchup is kind of unimportant, since they're both usually on like tank or engage duty, so it's kind of like, like who cares, right? The mid jungle of Scout and Tarzan and the ADC of Gala are kind of what make this matchup for me. So I think Scout and Tarzan is objectively better than Weiwei and Xiaohu. I think that Scout and Tarzan show a lot more consistency. Xiaohu is good, but he shows a lot of inconsistency. I don't even know what this guy's doing anymore. Like, he used to be really scary. I feel like he's not as scary as he used to be. I think Weiwei's good, but again, inconsistency. I think Scout and Tarzan win on consistency over the two of them versus Weiwei and Xiaohu. Also, Gala is out of contract jail with RNG for now. His contract is a fucking mess, by the way. But he looks really hungry for a Worlds run. He really wants to go. He wants to show that he's good, and I mean, he's looking really good. I think Light is good and has this like really, really impeccable ability of like patience and fight selection, but Gala is just a lot more capable of pulling the trigger. And this meta is certainly in his favor, since Kai'Sa is still good for the playoffs. So, I mean, that's a dumb thing to say, sort of, but I think that, I mean, Gala Kai'Sa is like unbelievable, right? Like, so, I mean, the fact that Kai'Sa's meta is like asking for him to at least get it, because it's kind of a handshake pick right now. So Kai'Sa's high prio for that series. Even though LNG lost 0-2 to Weibo in the regular season, I honestly just kind of chalk that down to like really bad drafting on their half in both games. I mean, it was really bad. And also, early on the split, it still feels like you can sort of justify, like it was week 2, I think, so you can sort of justify like bad meta reads. So like they just didn't really know what was good yet, so they were picking shit like Gnar, and Poke Varus, so I mean, you know. That second take could be like a little copium, but I mean, I don't think that it changes that LPL would just have objectively, or not LPL, LNG have like objectively better players. I think that it's still true that the LNG team is just like stronger, like as a net. So yeah, those are the first 3 rounds, and now what we're gonna do is we're gonna go to the rounds 4 through semifinals. Okay, so there's a lot more to break down here in these last few rounds, but we'll try and be quick with it. So firstly, we have round 4, which will see the 2 brackets of BLG versus Top Esports and JDG versus LNG, and the losers of those 2 rounds go to a losers bracket, and they'll play each other, to whoever gets eliminated, basically. So first, BLG versus TES. I want to be pretty brief for this. I think this is a BLG 3-1. This is pretty one-sided, in my opinion. I think despite Top Esports being insanely good, BLG is like literally just on another level. They lost 1 series, and it was to JDG. So, I mean, they look insanely good. I'm pretty sure they have something like a 88% win rate. which is the highest it's ever been in the LPL. I think they set like some new record, right? I think that every player on BLG is better on a role without a doubt, with the exception of Yagao, but that's because it's Rookie, right? Like, if Rookie was on BLG, honestly, this team would probably be like a LPL winner, right? There's a chance of that, I think. Elk, Shun, Bin, and On are all totally scary, and Elk is making a very, very, very good argument for the second best AD in the world. I think that he just is insanely good, and his ability to play basically everything on the meta and play some stuff that is not on meta, like the Jinx, but play it well, he's really, really scary. So I think that I just don't have a lot of notes except for one loss that I could see BLG taking, and that's likely through Rookie, like opening up Yagao mid lane, and Jackie Love probably having some really good aggressive plays, but I just don't see a world where BLG can lose this series to top esports. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. So yeah, moving on to GG versus LNG. This is probably the quickest notes I have for any team. It's a 3-0. I mean, really. I don't really have much to say here. It's fucking 369, Kanavi, Night Ruler missing. We're all like best in role in the entire world, right? So they're good. They're going against these good players, but they're not the best in their role, not even close, right? So this is like, maybe like, this is nothing. And you might be telling yourself, yeah, but JDG lost to FPX and they lost to Weibo. It's like, okay, who cares? They were trolling in the FPX series, the Weibo series. They lost to Weibo last split, and then they ended up winning the entire LPL, and then they won MSI like without like any problems, right? So I think those losses honestly mean nothing. So despite, you know, 2 little trolling missteps, this is still the best team in the world. So I really don't have a lot to say. This is gonna be 3-0. I would be surprised if they lost a game. That's a lot more to say about LNG in my opinion than JDG. So moving on to the losers bracket of Top Esports versus LNG. So this will be a very, 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 very close series in my opinion. This is a Top Esports 3-2. If you look at the important players, I think Rookie's better than Scout. I think Gala is better than Jackie Love, but just barely. It's like barely, barely, barely better. I think Gala has a slight advantage on the meta, and I think that he's just a better player. I think he has the aggression that Jackie Love has, but it's a little more calculated. So Gala plays like a robot, in my opinion, and I think that beats Jackie Love just a little bit. But between like Tian and Tarzan, I would probably put my stock into Tian just a bit more. I don't think the Wayward and Zika matchup matters very well, for the same reason that it didn't matter with the Shy. It's just kind of like they're just put on like engage tank duty, or like just basically like big BP front line, so it's like they're not really making or breaking the game, right? So between those three, between like the mid jungle and ADC, I think TES just barely takes it, right? I think in reality this series is kind of a big 50-50, even bigger than RNG versus Ninjas in Pajamas, so I really could see it being a 3-2 for LNG as well, but I feel like anything other than 5 games would be a little surprising, and honestly, if LNG or Top Esports take it in a 3-1 or a 3-0, that team is honestly looking a lot better than I initially thought. So, next we have the semifinals. So, since it basically would be BLG versus Top Esports, since I already kind of explained the matchup for TES and BLG, it'll be the same thing if they meet up again. I think it'll be basically the exact same thing. I don't think that there will be a lot of adjustment. I think BLG will be better. I don't think the series will be closer. I will say this, if Top Esports takes it anything other than like takes 5, I think it's like 3-0 or 3-1 against LNG, it could be closer. But in the status quo, like between the two teams, I think that it will still be a 3-1 for BLG. So, anyways, as I was saying, instead of talking about the series again, I'm going to sort of take a small aside to talk about what if LNG makes it through. What would the matchup look like? I think that if it's BLG versus LNG, it would still be a BLG 3-1. I think that Gala and Scout can make a good game happen, and they win that way, but BLG is still just way too far ahead of LNG to risk actually losing the series. I would be surprised if it was a 3-2. I wouldn't be surprised if it was a 3-0 even. I think that I just have to believe in Scout and Gala a little bit. I think Shun's better than Tarzan, obviously. I think that Scout is better than Yagao, but I don't think that's going to change a lot, considering that when it comes down to Gala versus Elk is just going to piss all over them. But it is what it is, right? So, going back to the semifinals of BLG versus JDG, which is the semifinals, and then obviously BLG will play against them again, play against Top Esports or LNG to play against JDG again. I'll basically just talk about the matchup twice, basically for both times, for both semifinals and finals. I think the first time JDG will take a 3-1. I think that JDG has literally won every series against BLG, so I think personally, in my opinion, it's like literally impossible for BLG to lose the series, or for BLG to win the series. Like, there's no precedent that tells me that BLG can win the series, so I think that they can get a game. I don't think they're gonna win the series, though. And then once they get to the finals, it'll be a 3-2. I think BLG will probably be a little more experienced and prepared draft-wise. At that point, that's like the end of the meta, quote-unquote, for that patch, like the patch meta. So at that point, the meta reads will be the best they can be. And if they're not, then we'll see what happens. But I think that it'll probably be a 3-2. It'll be a close finals. It'll be a fun finals. Hopefully it's not a 3-0 because that's boring. But yeah. That being said, that's all for this video. I know it was a little intense. I just have to kind of be fast though because there's, you know, it's happening tonight. So I have to be watching this shit tonight, and I need to upload it tonight, before tonight rather. But yeah, the nice thing is that I think next week, I believe, the LEC and LCS videos will be out. LCS playoffs will be out, so I'll basically do something kind of similar to this for LCS. So yeah, we'll see what happens with that. But you know, I'll feel it out. LCK will still be a while. I don't know when LCK regular season ends, but it might be a bit. But yeah, just keep looking out for that stuff. Once LPL playoffs are done, I'll be going to the regional finals for them as well. So, you know, we'll get to things when they get to them. But as always, like, comment, subscribe. If you disagree with any of my takes, please tell me. Please tell me how Top Esports wins the split. Please tell me how OMG wins the split. I'd love to have the copium. Please tell me how BLG could actually take the win. Tell me how NIP has a miracle run to Worlds. I don't know. You know, tell me how how the Shy will, you know, crack open the earth and completely, you know, shit stomp the entirety of the bracket. You know, tell me whatever you want to tell me. I'd like to have discourse about the LPL. I think they're probably the most exciting region, next to maybe the LEC. So, you know, let's talk. I love to talk about this shit. So, as always, just, you know, say what you want to say, and I'll see you guys in the next video, which should be out in the near future. So, peace.